We got all this.
Alright, I worked through my study guide while y'all were doing it Friday. I don't remember if it was in this class or not, but one of the classes I did, so I've just got mine and I'm gonna show you what I would do on these and see what happens here. The question on, number one was a little confusing because it was talking about the constant term and the linear term and all that. But you still know enough to get number one right. It says decide whether it's linear or quadratic. Well, what have we been doing, linear or quadratic all unit long?
Quadratic.
Quadratic. And you're gonna get the quadratic, meaning the highest power squared, when you multiply the 3x times the negative 6x. So 3x times negative 6x is negative 18x squared. And then 3x times negative 3 would be negative 9x. Okay, so I've distributed the 3x, now I'm gonna distribute my 2. So 2 times negative 6x is negative 12x. And 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. So just like always, combine those like terms. So you've got negative 18x squared minus 21x minus 6. Okay, so start looking through the choices there, the two that say quadratic. C says the quadratic term is 6x squared. Well, here's our squared and ours is negative 18x squared. So it would have to be B, right? Just process of elimination on that, right? Okay, everybody good on that? Now, did I have to multiply all that out to get number one right? No. As soon as I knew that it was a quadratic, because the x times x is x squared, I could have just did that one move right there. And I could have got enough to answer that, so that could have saved me some time. All right, let me erase that for next period and go to a new page. Okay, page. Colored marker this time. All right, so on number 2, we're looking for the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and the points corresponding to points P and Q. So, I'm not gonna draw it perfectly, but you got a parabola looking something like that. So the vertex is wherever that point is, and that's also where your axis of symmetry is. So what I noticed first off, and I just started at the origin, and I of course drew it bad up there, but start at the origin. How many do you have to count to the left before you're on the axis of symmetry? Can you tell on that screen? It's kind of hard on the
2.
screen. Okay, so we go left. I don't know about that.
Is that blind?
It was like a sphere. Wait, no.
What are we looking
How many?
Is it 1?
Yeah, it is one. From the origin, how many do you count, how many left moves until you get to the axis of symmetry? Not on my drawing, on the computer's drawing.
1.
It is -1, so it's gotta be -1 something, so you can mark out B and D. And then how many do you go down?
2.
2, so you got the vertex at -1, -2, axis of symmetry at -1, so that could be A or C. So we just have to figure out about those P and Q points. What?
Mine looks like 2 negative, negative 2 negative. That's the dot.
You're looking at P, I'm looking at the vertex. Okay, so on P,
Oh.
on,
Okay, yeah.
on P,
That makes more sense.
on there, looking at the choices on A and C, it's asking about P prime. That little tick up there, that would read P prime. So that just means it would be the reflection of it. So if you go over there to P and you see it's on, what'd you say it was?
-2, -1.
-2, -1. So if P is on, P up here is on -2, -1, so it's here. P prime would be its reflection, so P prime would be there, and that would have to be at Z, my drawing's bad, but at 0, -1, right? Everybody see how we got that? So what would the right choice have to be for number 2?
D,
A.
I looked at it.
Same type of question on number 3. So scroll on down and look at number 3. It's the exact same stuff. You gotta just count to find the vertex and the axis of symmetry. what would you get as your vertex on number 3?
-3, 1.
Good, -3, 1, so you know it's gotta be either A or C again, they both have that, right? So then look at P, right now it looks like P is on -4, 0, so if I folded that and put it on the other side, P prime would be -2, 0. So it'd be A. Y'all doing good on those? Okay, now number 4, gonna get some actual good math to do here. Got a -2, a 0, and a 4. This is just, I'm just writing how number 4 sets up. And then a 1, -3, and an 85. Alright, so it says write a quadratic function for the set of values. So what that means is those choices A, B, C, and D, which one of those equations would the parabola go through those points on the board? So what I did, and you can do this several different ways, but the way I'm gonna do this, pretty sure this is what I did. Yeah, I'm gonna take the easiest set to work with and plug them into the equation and see if it makes the equation true. Okay, another way that might be faster is you could type all those equations into the y equals on your calculator and act like you're gonna graph it, and then go look at the table and see if those points match up. So, good, that's a good way to do it too. I'm gonna plug my highlighted point into the equation, C, because I know C is the right answer, just to show you. So y is -3 equals 4 times 0 squared plus 6 times 0 minus 3. So 0 squared 0, 4 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0. You see why I chose the 0, -3 to work with. It's easy. So all I've got is -3 on the left equals -3 on the right. Is that a true statement? Yes, -3 does equal -3. Like y'all figured that out, typing it in your calculator and looking at the table was pretty good. Okay, we floating all right? Anybody need me to?
So which one was that?
That was C.
Oh,
What'd you put?
no,
No, tell me, it's okay.
I didn't do that one because I didn't get it.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
me
do you
neither. I did
now,
not know
do you
what
have a
that
plan
table
for tomorrow now?
Mhm.
Okay. That's why we're doing it, that's why we're doing it. Alright, we ready for 5? Do I need to wait a second? 5's a good one, I like number 5. Says P equals -3x squared plus 6x plus 10. Alright, so the manufacturing estimates the weekly profit P in hundreds of dollars can be approximated by that equation, where X is the number of units produced each week in thousands. Part A,
All seniors, please come to the front of the high school building for pictures. All seniors, come to the front of the high school building for Spirit Week pictures.
that's done. Part A, how many units should the company produce per week to earn the maximum profit? Okay, so some background stuff that we know here. This is a quadratic, because that's what we're doing. This whole unit, it's squared, it's a quadratic, so it's gonna make a parabola. Our A is -3, so it's gonna open down. So when it's talking about the maximum product up there, that is the y of the vertex, right? Because that'd be how high it goes. This is in standard form. We know we can find the x of the vertex with our little -b/2a formula that we started off learning. So I'm going to say x equals -b/2 times a. So that's just -6 divided by -6, so that's 1. Now, remember that 1 that says is in thousands, but that doesn't matter to us right now. So if x is 1, I got to know how high that is, so I'm going to plug that 1 back in for both of the x's. So my profit will be equal to -3 times 1 squared plus 6 times 1 plus 10. This was early on in the unit when we did standard form, but we did this a lot. So it's been a few weeks, but we did a lot of this. 1 squared is 1 times -3 is -3. 6 times 1 is 6. -3 plus 6 is 3. 3 plus 10 is 13. So we got 13. Okay, so we got a 1 up here for part A. How many units should be sold? 1, which was in thousands, so that would be 1,000, right? So you can already mark out B and D. And then when we plug that 1 back in, we got a 13, and it said that, what was the money in hundreds? So 1,300 would be our money. So that has to be A.
It took me forever to do that one, cause that was the one that I forgot 1 times 3 is 3.
Oops.
I was thinking it was 1 for some reason, and I wasn't finding the answer that I got, so I was just stuck.
Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Alright, numero 6. First thing you would need to, number 6 is wanting you to write the equation for that parabola, and it wants it in vertex form, I think. Yes, vertex form. So the first thing you would have to do is be able to put your pencil up on your Chromebook and count and find that vertex. So can you tell what the vertex is on number 6? -2, very good. Vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And the vertex is the hk. So we can start by plugging that in. So we would say y equals a times x, and that h is the opposite sign. So if ours is a -2, we're gonna put +2. And then the k stays what it is. So we can start with that, which means you can automatically mark out A and B, because they've got the H wrong. See that? So we're looking at either C or D, and the difference on C and D is C has an A of 3 and D has an A of 1. So we gotta be able to figure out what our A is. So what you do to figure your A out is you pick some other random point off of the parabola, and you plug that random point in for the y and the x, and you solve it for A. Okay, so there's a ton of points on a parabola, but you want to try to pick some that are easy to work with. So I tried to find some whole numbers on it, and I used the point -3, 5. Okay, can you look at that parabola and see that it goes through -3, 5? So I'm going to plug a 5 in for the y, -3 in for the x. Okay, so -3 plus 2 is -1, -1 squared is 1, so 5 equals 1a plus 2. So subtract your 2, and a has to be 3. So we had narrowed it down to C and D. C has an A of 3, D has an A of 1, so it has to be C. Faster way to do that, enter it into your graphing calculator. So graphing calculators can be pretty handy on a parabola test. Alrighty, number 7, we're rolling along here. 7's got y equals -3 times x plus 2 squared plus 5. Identify the vertex and the y-intercept. Well, it's in vertex form. So h comma k, opposite on the h, k is what it is. So there's the vertex. That was just nice and handy in vertex form. Okay, so let's see what we can eliminate now. C, B, and D. So we don't even have to do anything else to find the y-intercept. What if you had another choice besides A? What if A wasn't the only one that got the vertex right? What could you do? What does the y-intercept mean? It's this one, right? Which means you don't move left or right any, so that means that the x would be 0. So you'd plug a 0 in and solve. 0 plus 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4, 4 times -3 is -12, and -12 plus 5 is -7. And so that is what it said on A. Usually when we're solving a parabola, we're solving for the x-intercepts where the y is 0. So they kind of flipped it on us a little bit there. Alright. 8 through 12 is the factoring section. What's the first thing we're supposed to check for every time we factor something?
GCF.
Very good, and on number 8, there is a GCF. What is it?
3. Right?
Yeah, kinda. Look at your choices. Might be a hint to what the GCF is.
This one,
Negative.
Negative
Mhm.
3, and they both also have an X.
Negative.
So we're gonna take a negative 3X out. So that's kinda already told you the answer. There's only one choice that has that right. See, stuff is not always as mean as it seems. But let's go ahead and review it. Negative 15 divided by negative 3 is 5. And x squared divided by x is x. Negative 21 divided by negative 3 is a positive 7, and we already took that x out. So that would be C. Now, if you totally and completely have a brain fart tomorrow and forget how to factor, go through the choices and multiply them. See which one would work back to the original function. See, if I distributed this, I would get that, so you can always work backwards with the choices.
See, I always forget to look for greatest
Yeah.
common factor until you say something about it.
Okay, so on number 9, is there, right here I wrote at the bottom, on number 9, is there a greatest common factor? Other than 1, no, Kristen's right. So what we look at after that is there's 3 terms, it's got an A, a B, and a C. So we do A times C, 1 times 8 is 8. What multiplies to make 8, but adds to make a negative 6?
Negative 1, negative 2.
Okay, negative 2, negative 4, either order you wanna write them in. Since my A is 1, I just get to plug those dudes in. It's the short, easy method here. If our A is not 1, like on the next problem, we'll have to do the grouping. But that would be it for number 9, which was B, as in booyah. Seeming better than you thought on Friday so far? Maybe? Some of y'all are not very assured. Alright, number 10. 10 and 11 are the 2 longest ones to factor. Alright, so we look for a GCF other than 1. 3, 26, and 35. Nope, don't have one. So then we go A times C, because it's a trinomial and it's got an A, B, and a C. So we do 3 times 35, I got 105. I need what factors to multiply to 105 and adds to 26.
21 and 5.
No. 1 and 105 would add to 106. How about,
Wait, what?
you gotta multiply to make 105 and add to make 26.
That's what I said, 21 and 5.
Oh, I thought you said 1 and 105.
Oh.
But no, that don't work.
Yeah, I
So
said
21 and 5 are the right pair. So I'm gonna now substitute those in for the 26, and then we'll have to do the grouping 2 by 2, because our A's not 1. So I'm gonna do 3x squared, and I'm gonna put the 21x first, because I know that that is friendly with 3. And then the 5x is friendly with the 35, so I've got those groups set up nice to have GCFs. So the GCF of this first group, 3 and 21 will be 3, and then they both have an x. Divide that out, leaves me with x plus 7. GCF of my second group will be a 5. Divide that out, and I got x plus 7. So now for your answer, you take what you had twice, multiply that by what you took out. 3x plus 5. Shazam. That would be D as in dynamite.
I have no clue how I got it right.
Me?
Did not do that.
Well, remember again, you can always start multiplying the choices. If you totally forget that, just go to your choices and start multiplying them and see which answer is this.
I probably.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all wrong with that. Alright, 11 is another grouping one like that. So we got 5x squared minus 22x minus 15. So 5, 22, and 15, there's no GCF other than one. A, B, C, it's a trinomial, so 5 times negative 15, I got negative 75. I need two numbers that multiply to get me negative 75, but add to get me negative 22.
Negative 25 and 3.
Negative 25 and 3, so I'm gonna substitute those in for the negative 22. Set up my 2 by 2 groups. GCF, the first group would be 5x, leaves me with an x minus 5. GCF of the second group is just a 3, which leaves me with an x minus 5. What you had twice, what you took out. And that's all she wrote there. My 3's got a little extra tick on it down there. Let me see if I can erase that. C, as in Coolio. Okay, on our last factoring one, you could do the A times C on number 12 again. But if you look at the choices, 3 of the choices have it written as a perfect square. So I would start wondering, hey, is this a perfect square that I can save some time on? So what I would be checking for is 16x squared a perfect square? Yeah, that could be 4x and 4x. Is 25 a perfect square? Yeah, that could be 5 and 5. And then if I were to do the square root times the square root, 4 times 5 has to be half of that. And it is indeed. So you're gonna be able to just fill your blanks in there.
Blue forms.
Uh-huh.
You want one?
Yes, thank you.
Blue forms due back Monday, a week from today, and the shots are a week from Friday on the 9th. Woo-hoo. Fill them out and bring them back.
Thank you, ma'am.
Even if you don't want the shot, if y'all just do no thank you and turn them in so we can just keep up with everybody.
Did I get that? Alright.
Thanks.
Uh-huh. Alright, so we said this square root of 16x squared would be 4x. Remember when we did completing the square, we brought down that first sign, so plus square root of 25 is 5.
I need all juniors dressed up for Spirit Week to head to the high school lobby.
Get your stuff together, Hayden, you gotta go smile pretty.
It sounded like I looked good for you.
Is there a vacation day?
Vacation day. Well, Caroline Trammell was dressed up like a grandma, she said happy grandparents day.
Yeah, that's all I have.
That was clever, I would've never thought of that.
What's tomorrow gonna be?
Mathletes versus athletes.
Vacation day?
Heck, I ain't good at math, so I'll probably not result for that one.
Alright. 13 is a fast and short and sweet one. We get to start solving on 13. 3x squared is equal to 21.
Oh, there isn't.
So we got no b on this one, right?
12.
So all we gotta do is just solve it algebraically when there's no b. So what would your first step be to get the x all by itself?
Square root.
Nope.
No, divide by 3.
Divide by 3.
It's one of those two.
So x squared is equal to 7. Now you need to undo a squared, so you would
Square root.
square root, and when you square root, you can be positive or negative, and 7 doesn't break down. So they put that as b. They didn't use the fancy symbol, they actually wrote it out twice. Okay, on 14, it says use a graphing calculator to solve round to the nearest hundred. So what I did on 14, I'm gonna work on marker, go there it is. I got 8x squared minus 5x minus 10. And I told some of the classes this, but I don't remember who I told and who I didn't. Throughout this, There's different directions on solve, like it says on number 18, solve by completing the square. You can solve them any way you want. Whichever way you like best, you can do. They might be more ready for the way the directions say, but that doesn't mean you have to do it. So when I saw this thing, I looked and I said, well, there's no GCF. I don't want to factor that, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the quadratic formula. So I had an A of 8, a B of -5, and a C of -10. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so that got me 5 plus or minus the square root of 25. -4 times 8 is -32. -32 times -10 is a positive 320. All over 16. So, 25 plus 320 is 345. Okay, now looking at the choices, what you see going on there is that 345 is not going to be a perfect square, so they're going ahead and putting the decimal and rounding on that. Okay, so I would actually take my calculator now and type square root of 345. It's going to take me too long to pull the calculator up on the smart board, so I'm just going to do it on this. Let's see here a second. Second square root 345 is approximately 18.57. So I've got to do 5 plus approximately 18.57 divided by 16 or 6. And also got to do 5 minus for my plus minus sign. Okay, so you got 2 problems to work out on that. Do the top first, so do 5 plus 18.57, enter. So just plus 5, enter, and then divided by 16, enter, and I got about 1.47 for the one on the left. Whoops. Okay, now I'm going to go back and do 5 minus 18.57. Enter, divided by 16, enter, and I got about negative 0.85. About. So, let's look at our choices. B is correctamundo.
I had the wrong sign.
Dad nabbit.
It's been forever since I've actually wrote this much on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And if I could question one, I'm gonna put B, 'cause that's what all the
Oh my
answers, I got wrong on.
Alright, let's look at 16. This is the one y'all were complaining about, a geometry problem. It says a landscaper is designing a flower garden in the shape of a trapezoid. So I just drew a little generic trapezoid on my test as I work with it. She wants the length of the shorter base to be 3 yards greater than the height. So it's going to be based off the height. So I'm going to just name my height X. She said she wanted this length of the shorter base to be 3 yards greater than that. So 3 plus X. Then the length of the longer base to be 5 yards greater than the height. So down here, 5 plus X. Okay, for what height will the garden have an area of 360 yards? So what you probably have forgotten, and I'll help you, I don't help give you hints on the test, but if you need an old geometry formula like this on the test, I will. Okay, so don't worry about that. The formula for the area of a trapezoid is you take half the height and multiply that by the sum of the bases. Okay, it said she wants the area to be 360, so I'm going to put that in the area spot. For height, I used X. Some of my bases, 3 plus X and 5 plus X, if I added those together now, that would be 8 and 2X, right? Just combine those like terms and added my bases. So now you're like, well, what does this problem even have to do with this unit? Well, when you distribute this half now, that's going to make a quadratic. So let's do that. 360 is equal to a half X times 8 is 4X. and a half x times 2 is 1x squared. Okay, so is that in standard form?
No.
No. Ax squared, so I wanna put my x squared first, plus bx plus c. So what do I do to that 360 to get it over there?
Make it negative.
Uh-huh. So now there's your quadratic in standard form. Okay? So I started wondering if I could factor that, if there were any factors of negative 360 that added to 4. And there might be. I didn't really think so based on the choices. The choices all have a decimal in them, so I didn't really think that. So I just went ahead and went to the quadratic formula. Okay, so our A is 1, our B is 4, and our C is negative 360. So here we go, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I went ahead and put 4 squared was 16. I skipped that step for us. And 2 times 1 is 2 on the bottom. So 4 times 1 is negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And negative 4 times negative 360. I didn't write that down. Let me do it real fast. 1440. And then add 16 to that. 1456. Okay, the square root of 1456 is 38.16 about. So I'll set up my plus and minus, right? Now there's one of those problems that I'm not even gonna waste my time to work. Because remember, we're talking about finding the height of this person's garden. On this subtraction problem over here, negative 4 minus 38, it's gonna be a negative number. When you divide that by 2, you're gonna get a negative number. I can't have a negative height to my garden. So I'm done with that one. Negative 4 plus 38.16 is gonna give me a positive number, so negative 4 plus, second answer, enter. I got 34.16 divided by 2, 17.08 about. So the height of her garden would be about 17.08 yards, and she rounded it to 0.1 on choice A. That one might have been the one that took me the most time. I always try to look for dummy answers to mark out, and the only one that I really felt confident in marking out on 15 was D. I didn't think it made sense that her garden could be 152 yards tall, high. Now that seemed a little, if you only have 360 total yards, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. Alright, 16 is a time saver one, so after we took a while on that one, we can speed up on 16. It says the directions say to write the number in standard form, and it's nice to you and even reminds you what standard form is on this one. So we're supposed to write in standard form, which means we're probably gonna have an I. Where's there an I over here?
The negative square root.
Good, good. Square root of negative 4 is 2i. But we're still not in standard form, so you just need to flip them. There you go. Okay, 17, we get to solve, and it doesn't tell you a method, it just says solve. You can solve it any way you want. What I noticed, it's not in standard form. So if you wanted to use the quadratic formula, you would have to subtract that 25 to get it into standard form. And you could do that. If you wanted to try to factor it, you'd have to subtract that 25 to get it into standard form. You could do that. But it's ready, this one is how I'm going to do this, it's ready for completing the square. Because if we start looking, x squared is a perfect square, 81 is a perfect square, 1 times 81 is 81. What multiplies to make 81 and adds to 18? 9 and 9. So this would be x plus 9 squared. Hayden, we are on 17. And so now it's quick and easy to solve. That whole left side is being squared. So we could just undo that by square rooting it. And the reason I thought that was a good idea is because over here 25 is a perfect square. So that's a good to square root. X plus 9 is equal to plus or minus 5. Now you just have to subtract your 9, but don't forget when you subtract the 9, you gotta subtract it from 5 and negative 5. Because the 5 can be positive or negative. So you get negative 4 and negative 14. Which is B, as in Boomland. Okay, now on 18 and 19, it tells you to use completing the square, but neither one of them are ready for completing the square. So I didn't do that. You could if you want to. On 18, you just have to get rid of the bad C and find your new good C. So you could do that. But I just went ahead on both of them and did the quadratic formula. So that's what I'm going to do. If you want me to look at it, complete the square with you later, I'll be glad to. But we got x squared plus 10x plus 14 is equal to 0. This one is already in standard form. 19 is not in a minute, but this one is. So my A is 1, my B is 10, and my C is 14. X equals negative B plus or minus the square.
Attention teachers, please release all sophomores to the front of the high school building that has dressed up for Spirit Week. Thank you.
Okay. So that got me negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 100. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, and negative 4 times 14 is negative 56. Check, make sure I think that's right. Yes. So minus 56 all over 2. And then when I do 100 minus 56, I got 44. Okay, so at this point, I'm looking at the choices to see if I'm gonna, because I know 44 is not a perfect square, to see if I'm gonna get to do a decimal or keep it in radical form, and there's no decimals, but there are radicals. So it means I'm gonna have to keep it in radical form. So look for the biggest perfect square that'll go evenly into 44. It's just 4, right? So above this 44, I'm gonna write that's the same as 4 times 11. Then the square root of 4, you'll get to bring the 2 out. Hello? Yes? No, ma'am? Yeah. No, I don't even have that kid on my bus. We don't, that's not in our district. I quit taking him about 3 years ago. No. No. All right. Bye. Craziness. Okay, so square root of 4 is 2, so we're going to have negative 10 plus or minus 2 square root of 11 all over 2. And then the last thing you do is divide it by 2. So negative 5 plus or minus 1 square root of 11, which looks like D, as in dandy. Alright, number 19, it's got negative 3x squared plus 7x equals negative 5. So I'm going to have to add the 5 to get it in the standard form. So negative 3x squared plus 7x plus 5 is equal to 0. And again, my method of choice is always factoring. But if my A's not 1 and I can't take a GCF out to make my A 1, then I'm going to go to quadratic formula. So I'm just working this how I would tomorrow. So quadratic formula, my A is -3, my B is 7, and my C is 5. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so -4 times 3 is -12, is positive 12, excuse me, positive 12. And 12 times 5 is 60, so I've got 49 plus 60, which is 109. Okay, and believe it or not, 109 can't break down. I think we used that one in class as an example one day. So I can't go any farther than that. But what the choice did is they reminded you that if the whole thing is over 6, that's the same as putting each term over 6. So how come on, the right answer is choice A, how come I got -7 over 6, but they have it all positive? How's that legal? Like, look at choice A and then look at what I have right here.
Divided by negative.
Good. The negative by negative is a positive, right? And we don't have to have the negative on bottom over here because we're gonna make them plus minus anyway, right? So that'd be an A. Isn't amazing? Alright, last page, last question, last quadratic formula. 5x squared plus 9x minus 2 is equal to 0. It's all in standard form already. I don't like to factor when my A is not 1. I think I could factor that one, because I think -10 would be 10 and -1 would be the factors to start off with, but then I'd have to do grouping. And to me, that's not my favorite. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to quadratic formula, but if you wanna factor it, it can be done. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Alright, -4 times 5 is -20. -20 times -2 is positive 40. So I got 81 plus 40, 121. And 121 is a perfect square. What times itself is 121? So I gotta do -9 plus 11 and divide it by 10, and -9 minus 11 and divide it by 10. -9 plus 11 is 2. 2 divided by 10 is 1/5. -9 minus 11 is -20, and -20 divided by 10 is -2, which was B. Alright, so remember the test that you'll have tomorrow will just be a different version of that one. So stuff will be worded like that in the same format as all that. Anything that you're still not sure on. That'll work, and use your calculator if you need some assistance.
Gotta remember PIMDOS.
Yeah, those were operations, that was funny that day. Feel better about it today than you did Friday? Seeing a couple of yeses, so good, good, good. Some of my classes were stressed Friday after it.
I was kinda